Welcome back to the Garden Podcast, where we cultivate our faith one verse at a time. Now you see a little tree here and a little snake here. The garden represents the order that God wants to bring to his people even today. And the snake is going to represent the chaos monster that is trying to go against God's plan. You're going to hear these themes all over this podcast when we read our Bible and when we cultivate our faith one verse at a time. Thanks for watching. Hey, welcome back, guys. I want to start this video just by asking if you could possibly just share this video. I'm really close to 50 subscribers. And I think I have a new idea where instead of doing the format like this, once I reach 50, I can go live and I can possibly just do a live video once a week and maybe with an occasional podcast and just post the live video. I think that'll be a better format because I would like to just teach the word and go through it without a whole lot of like editing and stuff, and we could do live Bible studies. And so if you're watching this right now, please share right now while you're thinking about it. Like, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Look, even if you don't watch another single video, just please hit that subscribe button. My first goal was to start this podcast. My second goal was to get to 50 subscribers, and we are really close. I only need 5 more. So let's keep growing this channel, and I want to try out that new format once we reach that. But as far as today, I want to talk about 4 forms of chaos in your life that we deal with. And some of these are, we're very emotional beings, and some of these entangle our emotions and get us confused. And these all have to do with Satan trying to confuse you. So, so let's get right into it. 4 forms of chaos. One of the forms of chaos that we deal with as a believer is the deep. Sometimes that word, the deep, is a word that is also used to describe an abyss. And so if you've ever seen like the bottom, like a picture or a video of the bottom of the ocean, it's instantly, or if you've ever watched Finding Nemo, when they're down there with the bombs and the submarine and the fish at the bottom of the ocean, there's some really wild things down there. And it seems like the further you go into the ocean, the scarier it gets, because first of all, the darker it gets, fish start becoming translucent because they're not affected by sunlight, so they have to adapt to the abyss that they're a part of. So scrounging for food down there and everything like that. Sometimes our life can feel like that. The further you move away from the light, the more into the deep you go, is the further from God you get. The Son, the provider, the one who provides everything for us, and we'll get more into that on the third one. But the deep is something the disciples dealt with in a couple different scenarios. And sometimes, for some reason, like these 2 stories are so similar that I thought they were the same. Like I kept asking myself, these aren't the same stories, are they? And they're not. But the one time the disciples in Mark 4 are on the sea, they're fishermen, but the storm that they go into in this verse, actually, let me just open it. And this is why I want to do live Bible studies, because I want to be able to just open this up and find a story. So I actually just read this last night. Mark 4:35. It says, "On that day when evening had come, he told them," that's Jesus, "let's cross over to the other side of the sea." So they left the crowd and took him along, since he was in the boat, and other boats were with him. A great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking over the boat, so that the boat was already being swamped. He was in the stern, sleeping on the cushion.
Jesus is sleeping during this storm. If you've never heard this story before, this is crazy. If you have heard this story before, it's still crazy. Because, first of all, you got to ask yourself, why was Jesus asleep? A second question is, do you think he knew about this storm before going into it? I think he did, and I think he's asleep because he's not scared of the storm. So when we're dealing with the deep, later on a similar scenario happens where they go back out onto the sea and deal with another storm, and this time the disciples are by themselves without Jesus. And then suddenly they look out into the water, and a figure, and they call it a ghost, is walking towards them on the water, and they finally figure out that it's Jesus. So my point is, whatever freaks you out, whatever storm is in your life, Jesus can walk on top of it. Every storm that's about to happen and everything that you're going through, Jesus knows about it. And I don't think the point of the relationship with God, the point of our relationship with God is not to just get you out of these storms, but it's to have God right in the middle of them with you. Jesus is proving that he can walk on top of your storm and be right in the middle of it with you at the same time. So not only does he do that, but he proves that you can walk on top of those storms too with him. Because Peter was bold enough to say, Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come out into this water. Tell me to walk on top of it. So what does Peter do? He gets out, walks towards Jesus on top of the water with him. And so my question to you is, when was the last time your faith allowed you to walk on top of your own storm? When was the last time you looked at your situation and you were like, this doesn't have to be the end of my story. This is just the middle of it. Okay, so that's number one. That's the deep. No matter what's going on, Jesus can walk on top of it. The next form of chaos is the darkness. Number two is the darkness. This one's very simple. Jesus is literally the light of the world. I know if you grew up in church as a kid, you probably heard that song, this little light of mine. All these songs that we sing, like Sunday school type stuff, made this concept really cheesy. But ask yourself, what happened when Jesus died on the cross? When he died on the cross, the land became dark because Jesus is quite literally the light. And the Bible describes him in heaven and God's glory lighting up all of heaven. And when you read Genesis, there was already light before the fourth day. Jesus was providing that light. Sometimes we depend on the sun for maybe energy, solar power, all kinds of other things to get a tan, when really Jesus is our true light. He's the one that we can walk towards and our true provider. So don't forget that concept in this life. When life seems dark, just quickly run back towards Jesus. When you feel like actually, let me say this. Sometimes as a Christian, when we make our first mistake back into that sin we didn't want to do again, we think, this was just the first time, I can handle this by myself. When suddenly you realize you've gone weeks, maybe even years, without talking to God about it, because you keep thinking you can handle it. You keep thinking that, I'll just stop next week. I'll just stop. This will be my last time. And the truth is, sometimes you can end up years down the road depressed, confused, because you thought you could handle it on your own. And I'm telling you, even after the first time, just come back to the Lord, and his forgiveness is already waiting on you. And let him light up that darkness before it overtakes you, before it allows you to think and listen to the lies of the devil, to when the devil, the enemy of God, tells you that you basically are not worthy, and that's a lie from the devil. And you are only worthy because of Jesus. And that can never be taken away from you. So just remember, when you're in that darkness, it doesn't matter how long it's been or how short, return to Jesus while you still have breath and look to him. Okay, number three is the third form of chaos is the desert. And I want to make this one point. God needs to be your absolute provider at all times, but especially when you're in the desert. So if you think about the the Israelites in Exodus, when they finally leave, somewhere in Exodus 10, I think, 10 or 11, the Israelites leave Egypt. And the whole time, now let me say this: it's really easy for us to, it's somewhere in 13, 12 and 13. It's really easy for us to look at the Israelites in this story and be like, oh, what a bunch of babies! They had to walk around the desert and follow like a ball of fire and a cloud during the day. That sounds really cool. Like, why did they struggle to believe? Well, I could ask us the same thing. Why do we struggle to believe when really our life is so easy? Sometimes we have air conditioning, okay? We have fast food. We have so many conveniences here in America. And if you happen to be watching this from another country, then we all have some kind of common grace. But God was never... basically, he didn't create us so our life could just be easy. He created us to worship him. He created us out of his glory and out of his overflow of love to make us relational beings to love him back. It's not that he needed us. We're the ones that need him. So learn that God is your provider before you ever go to the desert. That way, by the time you get to the desert, you realize that he is the only reason you're going to survive. So when they're in the desert, after rereading Exodus a few months ago, I realized that God didn't just provide manna. He provided doves. I mean, he might have provided some like steak. No, probably not. But I just picture myself, if I was in the desert, I'd want some steak, some chicken, a whole buffet. You know what I mean? And God provided that. God provided a way for them to eat, and they still complained. We do the same thing. That's because the desert will confuse your appetite. You'll get to this point where just about anything sounds good, and they started creating their own gods. We do the same thing today. So don't look at the Israelites in the Old Testament and basically think that we're better than them, because we do the same thing. Our life is, like, I would say, so much infinitely easier than it was back then. Not saying we don't still deal with desert mentality or this form of chaos, but we do need to realize how much grace we have in our life and realize that God is your provider before you make it to the desert. Because sometimes, like I said in the beginning of the video, sometimes this can just be like a feeling. You may not actually be in a desert. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the feeling inside of you where your relationship with God seems to be desolate and dry. I promise he's still there. I promise that he's still right next to you, okay? He can walk on top of the water, on top of your storm. He can light up the darkness, and he definitely can provide during your dry seasons, okay? The last form of chaos is actually a being. It is the dragon. The dragon, Satan, the serpent, demons are even a form of this. This is a very physical thing. Not saying you're going to see like dragons coming out of the sky, but the Bible describes in Revelation, John calls him a dragon. Hold on, let me turn that off. Actually, I'll just turn this down a little bit. I didn't think that would kick on, but it's getting hot really quick. Okay. Oh, I don't know if I turned that down or turned that up. Anyways, I'll be done here in a minute. Basically, the John in Revelation calls Satan a dragon. And if you go back to Genesis 3, the word tanin for serpent is also translated to dragon. So if you picture not just this tiny little snake that's talking, but actually this chaos monster, as the Bible describes this beast. And the serpent in Genesis 3, like I said, is said to be more like a dragon, like a chaos monster. What is the goal of Satan? He wants to turn you into a beast. He wants to make you act like an animal. And if he can do that, then you're going to go against your very nature. See, Satan wants you to think that your nature is a beast. And what do beasts do? What do animals do? Animals do whatever they want. Animals don't have self-control. Animals will take care of any appetite that they have because that's their nature. That's what they do to survive. So Satan wants you to think that that's your nature. Well, what is your nature? It's to be like God. You're made in His image. It's to give Him glory. Not that you are going to be God. That's not what I'm saying. But the lie of the devil in this part, Genesis 3, is that you weren't already made in God's image. Satan wants you to think that you were not already like God. See, you are like God because you have authority over the beast. You have authority over animals. You have authority over situations in your life because of Jesus. Not because you are God, but because you are like your Father in heaven. And the reason this is a lie from Satan is because he doesn't want you to realize that. He doesn't want you to realize that you were already made in God's image and you were already loved by God. And, obviously I wish Adam and Eve would have realized that. But again, we can't just sit here and point a finger at them because we do the same thing too. We give up our nature all the time when we do things against God. When we are sexually immoral, when people steal, when people go against someone else or maybe even kill someone, murder, and to kill someone that is also made in the image of God. That's what animals do to survive. That's not what we do. That's not our nature. And so the serpent, the dragon, the beast, the demons, they want to confuse you and make you think you're just an animal, and you are not. So the four forms of chaos again: the deep, Jesus can walk on top of your storms. Number 2, the darkness. Number 3, the desert. Number 4, the dragon. Please remember these, and remember that our overall point today here is that Jesus is not in relationship with you just to make your life easier. He is to point you to God and to bring you into God's presence. I would rather go through 80 years of just the worst time ever to make it into heaven. I would hope that whoever is watching this would go through whatever it takes to just make it into the presence of God. To get to church every chance you get. Every time the doors are open, that's the least we can do, is go to church to worship God and be with other believers in the faith. Do whatever you can to be in His presence, even now. That way, by the time these four forms of chaos hits your life, you will already know who your God is, and you won't be fazed by it. So please, if you liked anything in this video, if you made it this far, please like, share, subscribe, comment, maybe even give a rating on this channel. That would really, really help. It would boost this channel. And please, let's get to 50, 100, 200, whatever. I'm not trying to, get into the millions or anything. Not yet anyways. But like I said, I want to reach my second goal of getting 50 subscribers. So please leave a comment of anything you would like in the next video, or anything that you liked about this video, or if you have any questions. I do apologize if the air is really loud. We're just working with what we got here. So thank you for joining us at the garden where we cultivate our faith one verse at a time.